What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. That link is in the description below. And I'd love for you to go there and sign up for my newsletter. Never miss a video because I will send the updates weekly of all the videos that come out. And also, you get a free graphic novel for signing up because I love my newsletter subscribers and I want to see more of you guys there. This is Indiana Jones Omnibus, The Further Adventures, Volume 2. And you're probably like, this came out of nowhere. This is a Dark Horse publication. They are smaller than standard comic books. So if you look, and this is really annoying to me because it makes the lettering smaller. It's really not as fun to read. But this is what Dark Horse did. They did this with Star Wars and I think Alien and a couple other deals. This was their omnibus way of doing things for a while. And a lot of this stuff never got reprinted. This is Marvel's Indiana Jones series from the 1980s. And this was coming out as the movies were super popular, so Marvel was capitalizing on that. And they had a whole series. This book covers issues 13 through 24, and it also covers the Temple of Doom movie adaptation, issues 1 through 3. So we're in the middle of the Indiana Jones fever right here, and you're probably wondering, why the heck are you reading this? And I'll show you. If you look at issue 21, you see a name that is pretty familiar to the channel. And yes, he just did one issue of this, and only pencils. We actually had, look at all these. Look at how many different people inked this. I'll get to this later. But he did one issue, so I got this, and I got volume 2 because this is where Ditko started. Now, volume 1 is severely out of print also. Of course, I'm a completionist, so I would have read from the beginning just to read this whole series if I could have. But to get volume 1, it's like $300. I'm not willing to pay that for undersized book like this. I'm going to hope Marvel eventually comes out with epic collections of these to do that, because they own Disney, or Disney owns them now, so they should have a license to these properties at this point. Really nice dynamic cover to start, and this is it starts with a storyline, just a one-off, and a lot of the early ones are just one-offs of Indy going off with a group of students and getting into a misadventure as he falls into this cave, and there's people trying to steal stuff, and he stops it, and that pretty blonde girl you just saw, oh no, help, was just... the twist is she's part of the bad guys here. Now, I like Herb Trimp's art, and he does most of the art in his volume. He's very underrated. I know him mostly from The Incredible Hulk and his run on that, but he's a stalwart Marvel artist throughout really the 70s and beyond. And he's just one of those guys who can hit the deadline and get going on time. And he really does a good job. Now my only criticism of his art is he really does not draw Harrison Ford looking like Harrison Ford. Yes, you've got the brim and the outfit and all that, but I really don't get the Harrison Ford vibe out of this. I love the use of shadow in the cave here, though. He does a good job with light and actually using a lot of little lines just to amplify shadows, which is really nice. And this is a really nice layout for the action scene where he's getting sprayed with bullets. And this is an awesome part too, where he attaches a chain by hand to a airplane to blow it up. Very cool. All right. Beautiful painted cover. Sometimes we get some cool painted covers. They're not that often, but when we do, I really love seeing it. And so it's nice to read on that level. Again, Harrison Ford. He doesn't even look like he looked last issue. He looks like not him. Oh, well. And so we get into these single adventures. From that point forward, we get Marion from the first Indiana Jones movie as a sort of love interest and, I guess, supporting protagonist who goes on adventures. Beautiful airplanes again. Alex Toth is most known for drawing his beautiful airplanes, but this is a great job. Maybe it was influenced by Bravo for Adventure. I have no idea. But you can kind of get a cool vibe out of this. And again, nice shadowing. We have Vince Coletta on the inks, who does a wonderful job. And Vince Coletta does most inks on this, so it's very consistent while we're through this run. David Michelini is actually the writer of all of this, and he's best known for like Spider-Man and Iron Man on his runs. And yeah, it's just consistent Marvel fare where each issue really has good adventuring, good pacing, and some fun. Now, once we get a little further into it, the storylines go into like 2 or 3 issue arcs from this point forward. And this one starts out here. Indy's captured by some pirates and fighting against actually some Japanese ships who are trying to cut down the pirates, and Indy's kind of embattled in that also. And it ends with these crabs surrounding it. This is the most ridiculous element of all of this because, oh no, the crabs! I just don't really fear the crabs like he does here. And I guess he's stuck in the sand. He's just blowing sand at the crabs. Very silly. All right. And so he gets out and fights the pirates and fights the Japanese. This is set in World War II also. And then finally some nice ship battles, which are fun. I mean, they really did a creative job of like nailing some Indiana Jones adventures through here. Very cool. In this one, in the next couple issues, we have Marion searching for her father. And she thinks her father was dead, and he comes back, maybe. And they go all around the world to try to find him. You can always tell a good artist by how they draw horses, and Herb Trimpe draws horses very well. They're very hard creatures to draw, so a lot of artists do not like to draw them. Another nice dynamic cover here with some action. Very beautiful landscape with the figures falling. You really get a sense of scope here. Beautiful stuff. And they eventually go through this, and they find this lost city in the middle of the Himalayas and all that. And eventually get back home. So, and when they get home, this starts the next adventure, which there's a filler issue first, but there's this ring and this that they found in issue 11, which I don't have because that's in the first volume. And the museum's closed, and the curator, who's Indy's friend, is accused of faking this old ring or whatever because it's a fraudulent. Now, the filler issue is very interesting. It's done by Larry Lieber, who is Stan Lee's brother, who does not get very much credit at all. Larry Lieber does a lot of fill-in issues for Marvel and did a lot of those like short monster stories along with Jack Kirby before the whole superhero craze. And, you know, does a beautiful job. I actually really like his art. I think he does very neat designs with characters. I think his figures are very solid, and I wish he'd get a little more credit. Now this one gets very supernatural in that a literal dragon flies around. You don't get a lot of that in these books. It's kind of like implied supernatural, and then like you maybe get a hint of the mystery. But this one straight up has a full-on dragon that Indiana Jones eventually rides like a horse through the air, and then saves the people, and the dragon disappears. So we get back to our main storyline, and Herb Trimpe actually is gone by this point. And David Michelini is just doing the plot. I guess he ran out of time. And James Owsley does the script, who I'm not familiar with. And Luke McDonnell, who I'm also not familiar with, does the pencils. And it's a downgrade art-wise. You can kind of see this. It's a lot more talking heads and not as interesting as perspectives as before. The Harrison Ford, maybe he looks a little more like Harrison Ford. Not enough to... He doesn't here, certainly. Oh well, do much here. But basically, they're now. This is returning to that main storyline where they're hunting down that ring, and they end up dealing with some South American cartel type people in that, and get some information to lead them to the next adventure to try to clear their museum curator friend. And this is Indy and Marion. They go off here, and here we are, issue 21, and this is where I wanted to get to. This is Steve Ditko's art, and you can see the beautiful, like the Ditko backgrounds and the splash page is done in a manner where you're kind of seeing the whole perspective of where they're at. Now, again, he has so many different inkers on this that this issue is so inconsistent with the way the faces look. You don't really get Ditko faces through here. He has a very distinct style. You get a little bit in here because you get those eyes and the way the nose is pronounced, but still the inks really do not do the full Ditko justice to what's going on here. It's very interesting. You still get the eyes, which I always think Ditko has eyes which give a pained, expressive look beyond other artists, but you know they're lost in a lot of these inked drawings, which is a little sad. But it is what it is. And so he does just this one issue. It's a filler, and you can tell, like, you know, certain people inked different pages. They look very different from page to page. This is a very inconsistent issue. Look at this one. You wouldn't have even known Ditko drew Indy here. Maybe a little bit with Marion. Very bizarre with the inking, as I said. Now this one looks very much like a Ditko drawing. So somebody, I don't know who inked what pages. I'm not that familiar with inkers to be able to be like, this is Carl Potts, this is Al Milgrom. But I can tell some panels and some pages look a lot more Ditko-esque than others. Very interesting here. And there's these weird golden eagles that they find in this cave. Very different. This is very, I don't like this inking at all. It's like they barely even did much work with it. Oh my gosh. Like I said, super inconsistent throughout this. And it's sad. You see that, and again, just like, you kind of get the shading in the eyes, but like, you just don't get the proper quality of the ink lines here. They're very sloppily done here. Very sad. And that's the one Ditko issue. Now Ditko will return in Volume 3, and he actually does the pencils for the majority of Volume 3, and he has a consistent inker, not just like, you know, 5 different people rushing. I don't know what was going on with the schedule here. Obviously there was an issue with that, but that's what's going on. And in issue 22, we wrap up as we find the culprit of the whole Ring saga. Indiana Jones like actually goes into this, like, you know, this guy's compound alone with Marion and another guy. And there's a Nazi along the way who showed up in the Ditko issue and who was going to kill Indy, but because Indy saved his life, he's sparing him for now. And the Nazi actually ends up, you know, helping and sacrificing himself on behalf of Indy for his honor. You would never see that in a comic book issue today. There's never any nuance about characters who are Nazis or Nazi sympathizers or whatever. They're all just like blanket zombie characters at this point in history, and it's just sad because, you know, when you see this, the guy's clearly a villain. He's a Nazi, but when you see characters acting, you know, in a 3-dimensional way, it really makes good storytelling, and you've lost that a lot in comics today, which I miss. So Ditko didn't do this. I forget who did this art. I think it was back to that McDonald guy or whatnot. Just, you know, not the best stuff. What can you do? And then you get a adaptation of the Temple of Doom, and this is done by David Michelinie, and Jackson Geist does the pencils. And I'm actually reading a lot of Jackson Geist's stuff on The Flash right now from the 80s, and very solid 80s work in terms of the pencils. A little darker of a vibe with the inks. You see a lot of darker shading through here, and I'm not going to cover the Temple of Doom too much. I mean, you should know the plot. I would assume everybody's kind of seen this. You know, I mean, this is, I mean, he looks just like the kid from the movie. So, you got that there. And I think Jackson Geist does a little better job of capturing Harrison Ford looking like Harrison Ford, which is kind of nice. I remember that scene. Okay. And there's 2 more issues left of the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones, the Marvel series, which is Unique Adventures. And you never hear from this girl in the Further Adventures. They're watching a movie. Now, at this point, Herb Trimpe actually does the art and story completely himself. So, very bizarre. Like, he went from penciling it and David Michelinie doing it, and then they seem to not be able to get an artist ready. And then he did this last arc all himself. And, you know, he actually does pretty decently scripting a story and all that through here. I had fun with it, at least. And we get our last story, Bandana Jones here. Or I guess we get two. Oh boy. Lurks within the tomb. Revenge of the Ancients. Very nice. And Indy gets embroiled in this like controversy because he sees somebody get killed, and then they're after him, and he ends up on a ship with that evil monocle guy. Yes, I love evil monocle guys. I need more of those in comics. And they've kidnapped this gal, and they're going to sacrifice her on an ancient Aztec something or other. And she's got the blood of those running through her veins. Very pretty girl they drew here. And Indy has to rescue her, of course, before doom. And eventually this Aztec thing all blows up on the bad guys, and Indy and the girl get out. The end. So a couple one-offs by Herb Trimpe there to round that out. I believe the next volume starts with Ditko. I can't remember if he's immediate or if there's an issue or two also. But he fills out most of the rest of the run. There's a couple fill-in issues in there. So volume 3 really gets into the Ditko stuff, and so I'm excited to read that. It would have been nice to have volume 1 just because that issue 11 is referenced in like half of these stories in here, and I haven't read it because I don't have volume 1. But since that's so absurdly expensive, never going to get to that unless one of my kind readers wants to donate me volume 1 to complete my collection here. So very fun stuff. I've never been like the biggest Indiana Jones fans. I like the movies all right. I like the ride at Disneyland a lot. But this was totally worth reading. It's just really fun adventure comic fare. The Ditko issue, like I said, the inkers kind of ruined the art there. But beyond that, just fun adventures. You can recognize the characters and love them and have fun with this, and that's about all you can ask for. About a 7.5 out of 10, so slightly better than average. On average, I wouldn't say this is the greatest stuff in the world, but I'm happy I read it regardless. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.